All right, so I want to speak about the normalization of the ghetto. And this, of course, is building on what Norman has said about operating in one language. There are, thousands of communities on the planet. And many of those communities speak multiple languages. There are a few powerful communities that only speak one language, where the members speak only one language. But for some reason, what has become normalized is monolingualism, as if it is the dominant pattern. But as you go throughout the world, you find that generally people are able to speak multiple languages. And so I agree with Gordon that monolingualism is a ghetto. Why is it a ghetto? Because it is a narrowly circumscribed world. Yeah, if we see a language as providing a worldview, yeah, a way of seeing, a way of experiencing the world, when you operate in just one language, then you have a limited view of the world and you only have one view of the world. But as I said, for some reason, that ghetto of monolingualism has been normalized. And this follows up on discussions we have been having over these past several sessions about how languages are deployed in communities and also the power relations that exist between languages. Now, in situations where a community speaks only one language, and that language is the global language or the dominant language, then that community believes that it does not have to accommodate to anybody else. And you can see this in action as people from the United States, people from the United Kingdom go abroad, whether that's for holidays or business meetings, that the expectation is that wherever on the planet they turn up for their vacation, English will be spoken there. And very few of them will attempt to learn even a few phrases and so from the local language. And I find that it's actually people who speak languages other than English, who, when they are preparing to go abroad to a country or a community that doesn't speak their language, they are the ones who tend to buy phrase books. They are the ones who try to prepare to at least say a few words, a few phrases in the language of that community. And so existence in the ghetto also provides the sort of mindset for that ghetto to perpetuate. That since we speak the global language, we do not have to accommodate. Everybody needs to accommodate to us. There's a story, I was going to say a quote, but I can't remember it verbatim. But the story is about a US politician from the 1800s, I believe, if not the late 1700s, who said that every time he goes abroad to represent the US, he has trouble because he can't understand people. So when he goes to the Netherlands, he can't understand Dutch. When he goes to Spain, he can't understand Spanish, or to France, he can't understand French. And there's a solution to this. Get everybody to speak English. So when he goes abroad, it will be much easier for him because everybody will understand him and he will understand everybody. But in so doing, again, we narrow the worldview, we narrow the perspectives that languages bring with them or with themselves. We narrow that way of seeing the world that has been developed over time for solving problems, for interacting in communities, and just for our general well-being and development. Now, I did mention that outside of these few countries, the situation tends to be bilingual. Now, there are cases of bilingualism or multilingualism where the two languages are very different. They're not mutually intelligible. Very different in the sense that they do not share a common history. And when the languages do not share a common history, one tends to find that you do not get the languages butting heads, or rather the speakers butting heads, because the political situation is generally a bit different. And normally, speakers work out some sort of balance between the two and the domains in which they will be used. But more importantly, that balance and that deployment of the different codes does not necessarily suggest that one is inferior to the other, but that one is reserved for particular things, whereas the other is reserved for other things. Now that introduces the concept of diglossia, which was popularized by Ferguson. I think there is some sort of recognition that the term had been used before Ferguson, but in the format that we know it, it's Ferguson's definition that we go with. And for Ferguson, diglossia, really a prototypical diglossia, deals with communities in which there are separate varieties. Let me simplify and just say two, but generally there are multiple varieties in a community. So in a community where there are two varieties, one has high prestige and the other has low prestige. And the one that has high prestige is used in generally formal situations, education, the legal system, etc. And the one that has low prestige is used in intimate, private situations very often. Now, that suggests that the two varieties are existing peacefully, and that everybody has kind of accepted their own fate. The understanding in Fergusonian diglossia is that members of the community, if they don't speak, they do understand both, but that generally tends not to be the case. That very often those who speak the low variety do not understand the high variety. And many people who speak both the high variety and the low variety will actually swear that they do not understand the low variety. Now, in the clip that you played with Norman, there might be diglossia there because as he moves to some of the more intimate topics, he switches into Gaelic, whereas English is for those things that are a bit more distant. In communities like mine, Jamaica, we have what Hubert Devonish has called Conquest Diglossia, where the two codes are historically related, but the linguistic situation or the sociolinguistic situation has come about because of former colonization. And that colonization has produced a situation where the low variety is actually denigrated. So there's no equality in this sort of situation, whereas the high variety is seen as prestige and the variety that everybody should learn. To close, in communities like mine, where we do not get this equality in the two codes in the bilingualism, if the low variety is seen as a language at all, many members of the community treat the low variety like a disease or a diseased part of the body that needs to be taken care of. It needs to be treated or it needs to be amputated. And so over the past century or so, much of schooling in communities like Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, which have similar sociolinguistic situation, has been to eradicate the low variety, the Creole language, so that speakers can gain the high variety. Thank you.